This episode, we're going to talk about a continuation from a video that we had shared with you on end of life. A lot of people had questions about what happens after we die, and we're here to answer that today. Hi, I'm Allison.
And I'm Tom.
And today we're going to talk about reincarnation. So when you see a person's chart, do you see the evolution of the soul of what they've experienced?
Yeah, the evolution of my work as an astrologer, I realize that people come in with these stories, that it's an ongoing journey of learning through this experience many times. So I embrace the concept of cycles of lives, if you will. I don't think we come back as ants or cows, but I do think we come back in the forms that
That's good news.
I know. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like a cow, but
That's so funny.
but we come in, and the souls has to come into other souls with the related story of what their past look like, and this is what the family will represent. You know, the mother and father are symbols of parts of our experience in our past life, and this is where we relearn and get a consciousness to sort of the unconscious memory of what our journey had been looking like. And then we carry that story as we get into our early relationship profiles, and we don't realize that most of our early relationships are this unconscious memory of what we know how to be in a relationship in a certain way. Sometimes we carry that through many.
Is that kind of why they say some people have a type and they tend to pick the same kind of guy over and over and over again, and it doesn't work each and every time, and they're surprised?
Yes. And again, the dynamic is you see women will continually go back into an abusive relationship or a style of it, and you're like, why would they do that? And that's because it's actually known and familiar. They know how to survive that. Going into the unknown is scarier than dealing with some horrific experiences you have been. It seems amazing, but we do it. And it really is around 30 that we try to start breaking these cycles and move into what not as karma of what we brought in, but dharma of where we're trying to make the changes and work toward what this life represents. And really it initiates in the college years, because you all know that we all rebel at that time in our early 20s, where it's like, I'm going to do everything my parents taught me not to do. Or
I got
told
an
me
early
not to.
start on that.
Yeah. And then I think we have this instinct about what we really want, but I don't think we're really that aware because we're just like wanting to rebel. And then it comes back, I believe, later on in life.
Well, when you have your own children and they do the same thing to you, it definitely comes back.
Yes, well, doing Allison's chart, when I first saw her and I did her chart, she was famous in her past life. And the interesting thing is I saw that she was persecuted as well as famous, so persecuted for it. So that she would come into this lifetime, like not anything she was trying to do to be famous, it happens again. And the thing that she does for a large part of society, she's persecuted again. And so this is the journey of her dharma in this lifetime is to want to get off the stage and come home to her family, the opposite of what she probably did not have much of in the past life.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
And that is what I always want to do. I call my kids after I leave the stage and I'm like, I'm done, I'm coming home, and they ground me. So I'm just really lucky to have them, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yes, yeah.
So from my perspective, when it comes to reincarnation, and a lot of the questions that we got on our end of life segment that we had filmed had to do with how is it possible to reincarnate and still be there for your loved ones once you've died, how they never leave us. The best that I can tell and what resonates with me, because I've always been able to bring the dead through. I've never had out of service sign up or out to lunch, where I couldn't get a hold of them. So I can always bring them through. It really resonates true to me that in order to reincarnate and to recycle really back into life, you have to want it.
Yes.
Because I think some people were perfectly content with their lives and they don't want to come back. It's exhausting living, is it not? And then for the people who do want to reincarnate, I've noticed that it seems to be that because they can intervene for the living, in other words, when you're in a car accident, you survive it. It's not as bad because something intervened, almost like pushed you back or held you back in the car so you didn't hit the windshield. And people can't explain it, but they felt it, and they know, usually they have a sense of who it was.
That's happened to me. many times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've been saved a number of times as well, and I wasn't sure for what, but I guess we're here today, so that's what.
Yes, that's why.
So when they do want to reincarnate, the loved ones have to have been deceased for there to be nobody to intervene for anymore. They're no longer needed by the living that they love, so they could recycle and live another life feeling that they're not needed by the living anymore, so they can retire back into a new life.
Well, that's, and I like your perspective on that, because when I do charts, again, I'm going to tell you there are signatures in someone's story that shows they are not wanting to come back in. And that usually means the mother had a crisis in the birth itself. Now, I know you waited. You didn't really want to come back in because you waited an extra month or whatever before.
I was born early.
Oh, you were
myself.
early.
I was early, but I have a theory on that too.
Oh.
But it wasn't a complicated birth, but it's in my chart that I have a great deal of issue with matriarchal figures.
Yes.
And that's true.
Yeah.
So at least I know there's a reason for it. It was really nice when you did run my chart and did the reading for me, to understand that that was in the stars, so to speak. It was part of my soul map.
Right.
And that's why having a reading is such a great thing with you, because it just reinforces what you knew and it gives it shape. And then you're like, oh, it wasn't me.
Right.
This is just the path I'm supposed to walk. So it doesn't become as personal.
Right.
It's like, what am I supposed to learn
That's the thing.
from that?
The lesson is the point of the experience. And like, as those who don't want to come in, I think the best example of that I had was this woman. It wasn't too long ago I did a reading for her, and she had the signature very strong. And I said, your mother had difficulty giving birth to you. There was a lot of trauma around it. And she says, well, I don't know. I think so. Well, I guess so. I was breached, which is fairly traumatic in a birth.
Yes.
And then she goes, well, as a matter of fact, I have 7 brothers and sisters, and we were all breached. She's in the Guinness Book of World Records. So apparently all these souls
Can't get more real than that.
chose this mother. They all didn't want to come in, but they're all coming in. Here they come. So, and in that fact, it's like we all say, I don't want to come back in, or I do. I think it's the experience you're having. And so one of the things I want to say to all of you out there is the fact that are you in your life right now having the experience you want to have, or you making choices to make yourself feel like, I don't want to be here anymore, because it really is your choice. And I say when we get to the end, as I did in the first video of that woman I did the reading for, she found love at the end of her life. And so I believe that she will recycle back in, and she will find love right away. And her life will be very different because of the karma she healed and took risks and moved away from the old story and didn't keep repeating the pattern. And that's the challenge, is to recognize things that aren't working for you, why you're doing it, and why you're afraid to take the risk to change it.
I have a number of friends, and I'm saying this for all the people out there who think they're never going to find love because they're of a certain age. I have friends that found their true love in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. I've officiated a couple of those weddings, actually. And so, as I was very lucky to find Joe early on, hang in there, but try. And for a lot of the people that say they don't want to come back because they didn't like this time around, there is an effort that needs to be put in, but you also have to look at your own energy and ask yourself, am I repelling people in any way by shutting them down or being negative or, just being a know-it-all, not listening to people? A conversation's a two-way street. And I talk to people, obviously that's my job, and sometimes when I get somebody that doesn't understand why they've never had a boyfriend and they're 48, I don't understand that, because even my mom could throw a rock and find a husband. But I always think, what have you been doing your whole life to never draw somebody in? Because when you meet sweet people or caring and nurturing, or, oh, you just moved in, I baked you a cake, thoughtful people always draw in others. But do not confuse being thoughtful with being a doormat. So if it's just at your end and you're always giving and never receiving, that is not a balance. So be very clear of that moving forward in life as well.
Well, I look at my own experience. It took me to my mid-40s to stop the karmic relationship profile I had. And that was trying to save and rescue unhappy, damaged souls. Both my parents were unhappy, damaged souls, so it was already a story of my family. And, I didn't become one myself. I felt like I had to fix this problem in other people. And so that lasted for 20 years of my adult life. And then I stopped. And I realized I'm not here to fix anybody. They're on their own path.
Yes.
What am I doing getting in their way? I'm a happy person and I want to be a happy person. And so then I was in my mid-40s. I went out and started dating again, which was like scarier than you know what. So after I overcame my fear of the unknown and took a risk going back out into the dating world, about a year and a half later, I met the happiest person I ever met in my life. Someone you know very well.
Yes.
The kindest, sweetest little soul you'd ever meet. I'd never experienced that. I remember trying to talk myself out of it, like, what do we have in common? There's nothing wrong with them.
I've actually never met anybody as happy as he is.
and so I just realized this was the new life I was going to live in, a new relationship. And it's been 16 years, and I'm very happy and very fulfilled that I did find it, that I had to take the responsibility for going out there and changing it and taking the risk to knowing it was out there. And I get the sense that as we're going through our life and we're looking at what our choices are, the fact of the matter is like, if you are being who you are, and you are happy, you are uplifting, you are encouraging and kind and caring, you should reflect that back to you in your relationship, because if you're not, then that's a problem.
And when people project, the energy you project is the energy you draw in.
Absolutely.
So some people are like, why do I draw in and they'll name all these negative things. I'm like, it sounds a lot like you,
Mm-hmm.
You draw in what you put out. So you have to be really careful what you're putting out there and who you're vibing with.
Well, I also know people always say to me, they go, I think I married my father, I think I married my mother. Once again, that's a karmic signature because the karma starts in the family. Mm-hmm. If it's a good thing that your dad was great, you married your dad, that's wonderful. But if your dad was abusive and then you're marrying that part of the story, it's time to end it.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm sorry, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, who's Joe? But as far as the lives that we're living, I find that I'm very lucky. A lot of my clients, I'd say the majority of them, are very healthy. Mm-hmm. Spiritually.
Yeah, I would agree with me too. Yeah.
And nobody really ever looks at those people and says, wow, they don't know how to live. It's the people telling other people what to believe mm-hmm. and how they should be living. People telling you, it's like, I don't think you got your life together so well, so definitely don't try and direct me down another path. I got this, and it's important to know who you are. And I think there are a number of people out there that don't really know who they are, that they're searching to figure out who they are, and that's okay, because it's the searching that's a part of your evolution and your growth, but you have to leave the house. I talk to a lot of people that never leave the house, and they're like, when am I going to meet someone? Leave the house. Yeah. Join a book club.
It's in action. It's not a waiting and process situation. And so I'd like to ask people essentially, what is it you really want? There's a great show that was on TV for a couple of years. It's now streaming on Netflix called Lucifer. Lucifer is the devil, and his power over people is to be able to get them to tell him the truth. And he deviously looks at them and go, what do you desire? And it's very Scorpio, by the way.
Yeah, very.
And I love it because they can't lie to him. And so they tell him. And I kind of want people to do that to themselves. Like, what do you desire? Is anything that you're doing about what you desire? Because that's the goal of finding out your answer type of thing.
The passion, what's your passion?
Yes,
when people come to us and say, what's my calling? Why am I here? Well, this time around may not be where you do something amazing, but you're supposed to enjoy the ride. But you look inward to what your passion is. I always ask people, animals, children, senior citizens, pick one. Pick something that you feel like you need to make a difference for in this lifetime, somebody or something that you can make your existence better in their existence. I think everybody's goal should be that when they leave this planet, to leave it in better condition than the way they found it.
Well, definitely the life they were living before to where they end up, because that's sort of how I look at do you want to come back in or not? That's a great question, because Allison says she's done after this one, and I get the
I had a
sense
great run. I'm real happy.
she's fine. To me, I don't, I can say that, but I don't know if I believe it. I love what I'm doing right now. If I died tomorrow and I came back in doing this or doing what my soul wants to do instead of what my ego thinks it should do, I'd be happy to come back in, because it's not about me. It's what I want to give people. It's not about what I'm getting or not getting. It's what I want to give, that I have something. I have a talent or ability, and it seems effortless at this point because I don't think about it. It just is. And
it shifts as you go through life.
Well, it didn't happen in my 20s.
Sure.
No, yes, it was an evolution. But I wanted to answer that question on my terms about if we go to the other side and we're still, around the people we love, when do we go back in? Well, the thing is, in sort of, I don't know what term, I'd ask Joe about this, how you would term this, but time and space only exists in this dimension.
It's true.
It is finite. We know that because the minute we're born, we start to die. So it's a finite experience. So we have
God, that's a terrible.
Well, it's true. Well, I love that statement because it's so true. Anyway, but again, as you say, we're getting closer.
Congratulations, you just started dying.
Right. Good, you're getting closer to the people that have passed. There you go. But to me, it's like when we pass, life itself, your soul's eternal. And so as I look at it, it's like, okay, well, you'll be around, like Allison says, for those that you're still heart to heart, but when they all pass, it's like, okay, are we coming back in and doing this another round? The way I describe souls to children is my favorite way to look at it in the most simplistic form. And that is, I take a child out at night and tell him to look into the sky and look at the stars, and he'll see 1 billion stars. And I always say to that child, one of those belongs to you. It's where your eternal soul lives, shining bright in the universe. But then a part of that little light comes down here to go through this experience. And so this is where you learn about yourself and whether you're going to be adding light to that when you leave or subtracting.
An energy sucker or an energy
and
contributor.
So it's a way to get us connected to a sense of infinite, because the universe is infinite, or just out of our own egos in terms of what we're getting and not getting and why am I here. And
I say to people all the time, try and see it from the dead's perspective. To them, it's like 5 minutes have passed since they've got to be with you physically last. To us, it feels excruciating and like it's forever since we've seen them. So they have to watch us struggle, and they have to watch us go through almost either you die with them, and I've seen some people choose to do that. When the person they love dies, they don't want to live anymore. And I always say to the person I'm reading, especially if they have children and grandchildren they really need to be here for, if you love them enough that you would die for them, do you love them enough to live for them?
Oh, that's a great
Because
line.
it's what they really, really want from us. They want us to talk about them and share stories and enjoy our lives and make it a complete journey in our life. They don't want it to be cut short. They want to watch us grow and succeed and find joy and laughter. And I see people feeling guilty for laughing after someone they love dies, for even having a moment of happiness. And that's just not what they want. They want you to laugh. When you laugh, they laugh with you. When you cry, they cry with you. So it's what do you want to share with them? They're empathetic to us.
Well, I also say too, in my own theory, is that when you make the changes, leave the bad relationships, or find your passion in this life that your mother didn't or your father didn't, that you're helping them too. You're healing that whole story for all souls connected to it. And so that's why they want you to make these things happen, and why they will put voices in your ear and push you to these things, because they didn't have the chance. It didn't work for them. And so you're the next one in line to say, okay, let's get this done.
It was interesting, with you saying that, because I think of my own karma and dharma. And I was born to a mother who's very beautiful, but just had really bad judgment. And so
well, she's throwing rocks at men.
Oh my gosh, right? She was married more than a few times. And she always drew in men who seemed good on paper, but just weren't kind of dad material. So I drew in a partner who was the absolute best father, like hands-on, just women swoon over him because they're like, why can't you be more like him? Why can't you be like Joe? Because he is that great. He's just, I couldn't have asked for more in a man. And I became the mother that I wished I'd had. No offense to my mother, but I think she wanted a different child too than what I am. And that's okay. But I got to be this mother that I just feel really close to the girls, and I feel lucky to have been there.
In Allison's case, if you have a family story that seems like that, or seems like you didn't get what you wanted, or it was very dark in these situations, and you come into your adult life and go, I'm never going to be like my father, I'm never going to be like my mother, that's because they've been teaching you what you're here to learn to stop being. You know, that's why you got the story, because you're supposed to change it. That's the point of the karma in healing the wounds, so you can say, I'm never doing this. Now you will find yourselves unconsciously becoming your mother and your father in certain situations, and you know when you do it. Stop it, because you know it didn't work for you, so it isn't going to work for your kids.
That's so true. Well, thank you for joining Tom and I for this segment. We tried to go a little more in depth of what happens as far as end of life. We talked about what is going on with a person at the end of their life, and people that we've helped to. And when we say end of life, we mean they're terminal.
Right.
So if you call for an end of life reading, you don't need an end of life reading if you're not absolutely, limited in time. Mm-hmm. That's what we're here for, to counsel people so that they can feel the comfort of their transition. But a lot of questions about what happens after we die with reincarnation, people not understanding how people can reincarnate and be on the other side. And that's not the case. I mean, they're there and then they're not when they choose to be here. When there's no one living that they love to intervene for anymore, they can recycle back if they like. So I hope we made it more clear so that people have a better understanding, so that they get what you speak of in karma and dharma and what I speak of as far as the souls and the dead on the other side. Thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe.